You wake because the cold has found the gap between your shoulder and the felt. You don't know what woke you. The tent is dark. The lamp burned out hours ago. You hold your breath and you listen, and you understand that there is a man standing at the foot of your mat. He isn't a shape you invented. He's a man. You can see him clearly, which means he has been standing there long enough for your eyes to open all the way in the dark. He isn't armed. He isn't tense. He's holding a wax tablet against his chest and a stylus in his right hand, and he is looking down at you with the flat, patient attention of a man doing arithmetic. He is counting you. But first, we have to see how you got here. You are 7 years old the first time a man on a horse writes her name down. He rides into your village in the spring with 2 soldiers and a scribe, and he asks the headman for the boys. Not all of them, just the ones who can already sit a horse without holding the mane. You can. You've been doing it since you were 4 because your father raises horses for the satrap, and horses are the only thing your family owns that anyone important cares about. They take you in the fall. You are taught 3 things: to ride, to draw a bow, to tell the truth. That is the entire curriculum of a Persian boy who has been selected, and you will be tested on the 3rd one more often than the first 2. You do not go home for 11 years. Your mother is a smell: wet wool, a cooking fire, milk. By the time you are 18, you can put an arrow through a hanging shield at 80 paces from a moving horse. By the time you are 22, you are wearing a coat of iron scales sewn onto linen, 3,000 of them, each one the size of a thumbnail, overlapping like the skin of a fish. Under it, a tunic dyed the color of dried blood so that the wound doesn't show. Then, at 26, a man with a gold apple on the butt of his spear stands in front of you and tells you the number: 10,000. Not about 10,000, not roughly, exactly 10,000. The core is 10,000 men, and it has always been 10,000 men, and it will always be 10,000 men. And if one of you falls in the morning, another man is standing in his place before the evening meal. You feel your chest go warm when he says it. You are 26, and you have just been told that you are part of something that cannot be reduced. It will take you 14 years to understand what he actually said. They call you the Undersia, the companions. The Greeks, who get almost everything about you wrong, will hear the word and mishear it and write it down as Athanatoi, the Immortals. You do not correct them. You are not permitted to speak to them. The king feeds you first. Your bread is baked in the king's ovens. When the army marches, your wives and your concubines travel behind you in covered carts, and your food travels in its own baggage train, separate from the food of the other 400,000 men. And this is not a kindness. It is a message. The king is telling the other 400,000 men who they are, and he is telling you what you cost. Your spear is a little under 6 feet. The shaft is cornel wood. The butt is capped with a counterweight shaped like a pomegranate, silver, because you are one of the 9,000 and not one of the 1,000 of the royal guard, who carry gold apples instead. You have never once thought about the length of the spear. It has always been long enough. Your shield is wicker, woven rods layered, faced with hide. Its top's arrows. It is light enough to carry 20 miles a day. It is the correct shield for the way your people have always fought, which is at a distance, with the bow, in open ground, on horses, where you can move. There is no reason for you to think about any of this. You are going to Greece.
The crossing takes 7 days and 7 nights, without stopping. They lash 674 ships together across the Hellespont, prow to prow against the current, and lay cables of flax and papyrus over them, and then timber, and then brushwood, and then earth on top of the brushwood, packed down and walled on both sides so the pack animals won't look at the water and panic. You walk across the sea on dirt. You do not think of it as a marvel. You think of it as a road, because the men who built it are the same men who built the royal road, and you have ridden that road, and you know what your people can do to a distance. Behind you, the army does not end. It is not an army. It is a country walking. Rivers you cross are drunk dry by the time the rear column arrives. Cities that host the king for a single dinner are ruined for a generation paying for it. Nothing has ever moved like this. Nothing will again for 2,000 years. You are not afraid of anything on earth. Then you come to the pass. It is called the Hot Gates because of the sulfur springs, and the smell of it reaches you before the sight does. Eggs and iron. To your left, the mountain goes up like a wall. To your right, the sea. Between them, in the narrowest place, the road is about 50 feet wide. There is a wall across it, an old one, rebuilt in a hurry, and behind the wall, there are a few thousand Greeks. A few thousand. You have 400,000. The king waits 4 days. He is not being cautious. He is being generous. He is giving them 4 days to look at the size of what is standing in front of them and go home, because he cannot imagine that a man who has seen this army would choose to stay. They stay. On the 5th day, he sends the Medes. They go in shouting. They come out in pieces. You watch it from the hillside and you cannot make it make sense. You count nothing. You see the front rank go forward and then you see it stop, and then you see it fold back on itself like cloth. And the men who come out are not men who lost a fight. They are men who walked into a machine. That evening, the king sends for your corps. The whole camp turns to watch you march down. 400,000 men, and the king reaches past all of them for you. And for a moment, walking down that slope with your shield on your left arm and the sea flashing on your right, you have never felt more like the thing they named you. Here is what you find out in the next 4 minutes. Their spear is 8 feet. Yours is 6. That is the whole battle. In a 50-foot corridor, there is nowhere to go. You cannot circle, you cannot ride, you cannot shoot, because their shield is a solid bowl of wood faced in bronze, 3 feet across, and they overlap them, and the man on your left is protected by the shield of the man on his right, so that the line is not not 100 men. It is one animal with 100 spear points. You get to about 20 inches from the man in front of you before you die. 20 inches, and his point is already through your scales and your linen and your dried blood tunic. Your wicker shield stops arrows. It does not stop 8 feet of ash with iron on the end. It splits like a basket. You do not break. That is the thing you will hold on to for the rest of your life. Nobody in your corps breaks. Officers move behind the line with whips, and the whips are not necessary because you are the Anusia, and you go forward into the 20 inches, and you go forward again. The pass fills up with your dead until the living have to stand on them. By dusk, the mountain has a new floor, and it is made of you. The king rises from his throne 3 times that day, 3 times in front of 400,000 people. He stands up out of fear. It is night. You are sitting with your back against a rock, and your hands are still shaking, and a runner comes for the commander. A Greek has come into camp, a local man. He has told the king that there is a path. It runs up through the oak forest, along the ridge, and comes down behind the pass. It is a goat track. The Greeks know about it. They have posted 1,000 men on it, which is 1,000 men holding a footpath in the dark, and which is nothing. The king gives the path to your corps. You march at the time the lamps are lit.
The climb takes all night, and it is the quietest thing you have ever done. 10,000 men in scale armor going uphill through oak leaves, and the only sound is the leaves, dry ones, late summer. Every step is a small explosion of noise, and there is nothing you can do about it, so you go slowly, and you go slowly for 6 hours. You stop thinking about the Greeks somewhere around the 3rd hour. You start thinking about a horse your father sold when you were 6, a gray one, and how you cried, and how he told you it wasn't yours. You think about a woman in one of the carts behind the army who has been traveling for 2 years to a place she has never heard of, for a war she will never see, because you were promoted. You think about the fact that you do not know your mother's face, and that this is not a thing that can be repaired. You shift your weight to keep your legs from locking. You are aware of every leaf under your right foot. Dawn comes and there is no wind at all, and in a windless dawn, the oak leaves are the loudest thing on the mountain. The Phocians hear you at about 100 yards. They come out of their camp half-dressed and stare at 10,000 men in scale coming out of the trees, and they do the only sane thing available to a human being at that moment, which is to run uphill to higher ground and prepare to die well. You don't even go after them. You do not care about them. You have never cared about them. You walk past them and down the far side of the mountain, and by mid-morning you are standing behind the Greeks, and by noon it is finished. You survive. That's the part nobody says out loud. You survive the pass, and you survive the year after it, and you go home across a bridge that isn't there anymore because the sea broke it, and you are 40 years old and you have a small piece of iron in your left hip that will never come out, and you sit in a tent and a man comes in the dark with a wax tablet. He isn't looking at you. He's looking at the space you occupy, because here's the thing you did not understand when you were 26 and they told you the number and your chest went warm. 10,000 is not a description. It is a rule. They did not call you immortal because you were hard to kill. They called you immortal because the number never changed when you died.